badly damaged fire truck pulled from the ruins of the World Trade Center. A poignant reminder to rescue workers of what is at risk.
Investigators find links between two targets of terrorism, the attack on the Pentagon and on the USS Cole.
And killed in the line of duty, New York firefighters lay their leader to rest. Hello, I'm Michael Holmes.
And I'm Colleen McEdwards at CNN Center. This is CNN's continuing coverage of America's new war. United States President George W. Bush telling Americans once again today to prepare themselves for war.
That's right. Speaking at Camp David on Saturday, Mr. Bush said his National Security Council is planning a comprehensive assault on terrorism, and he vowed that America would win that struggle. No details of any pending assault have been released, but Mr. Bush is warning it will likely take time and it will take sacrifice.
And in New York, the search for survivors continues through the night, but now, nearly 5 days after the tragedy, hopes are beginning to fade. No survivors were found Saturday. No one's been pulled out alive now since Wednesday. In the meantime, a second man is being held as a material witness in connection with the attacks. The first material witness was arrested Thursday at Kennedy Airport in New York. A total of 25 people are being questioned. Authorities say evidence so far is strengthening the case against chief suspect Osama bin Laden.
Distant ages seen so longing for their end.
Thousands of mourners gathered at a funeral for New York City fire chaplain Michael Judge. He was killed while administering the last rites to a dying firefighter. Two other New York City Fire Department officials also laid to rest Saturday, including the city's fire chief. And that, sadly, is only the start. More than 300 firefighters remain missing. The investigation into Tuesday's attacks is the largest in United States history. Authorities now say that two of the hijackers were on an FBI watch list. Eileen O'Connor has more on that.
They booked the tickets on American Airlines Flight 77 from Washington to Los Angeles on Travelocity, using a New Jersey address, mailboxes, etc. And names U.S. officials confirm were known to them: Khalid al-Mihdhar and Salim al-Hamzi. Once on board, together with al-Hamzi's brother and an old roommate, a known pilot, they took over the flight, crashing it into the Pentagon. Within minutes, the facade of a symbol of American strength crumbled. As the search and rescue efforts continue, sources say the FBI was informed that Khalid al-Mihdhar and Salim al-Hamzi were associated with Osama bin Laden and the bombing of the USS Cole. One source confirms al-Mihdhar was seen on surveillance tape in Malaysia, meeting with the suspect in that bombing.
One was kind of short and the other two was tall.
Al-Mihdhar was a frequent visitor of al-Hamzi and his brother Nawak in the San Diego apartment complex.
They was always together. If they left, they was together. They come back, they together.
They hung out a lot at the pool, despite telling their neighbors they were studying at a nearby college.
You'll see three of them in the pool swimming, or you'll see the dude always looking out the window, another one outside the door on the phone.
At one point, they left, telling one landlord they were in Arizona, living in different cities at different addresses. As it turns out, rooming with another hijacker aboard that plane, Hani Hanjour. Hani attended this flying school, CRM, Cockpit Resource Management, but left without a certification.
He's kind of a waste of time. He wouldn't show up for flights on time, didn't do his homework.
Not a promising student, but skilled enough to carry out the mission. Eileen O'Connor, CNN, Washington.
The Justice Department is releasing more information about the alleged hijackers and the terrorist network thought to have sponsored Tuesday's attacks. CNN has obtained photos of 8 of those suspected hijackers. We want to show you all of that now. From American Airlines Flight 11, which hit the World Trade Center's North Tower, Mohammed Atta, Walid al-Shari, Abdelaziz al-Omari, and Walid M. Ali Shari. From United Airlines Flight 175, which hit the World Trade Center's South Tower, Marwan El-Shehi, and from United Airlines Flight 93, which crashed in rural Pennsylvania, Saeed Al-Ghamdi, Ahmed Al-Haznawi, and Ziad Samir Jahra. Well, the attacks showed that the United States and the world that it is not easy to identify hijackers before they commit their crimes, but investigators have managed to identify some common traits. Our national correspondent Mike Betcher has that.
To help them better understand the group of people that managed to successfully hijack 4 aircraft, investigators have put together a list of common characteristics of those 19 people. Let's take a look at the list. The first 2 items, male, early 20s, that's obvious. But it also says they're likely to have Saudi passports, likely to have visas issued in Saudi Arabia, and also clean-shaven and Western appearance. Now, we also have another document which was given as evidence in the African embassy trial, and it is the Al-Qaeda training manual. Al-Qaeda, of course, the group U.S. officials say is the terrorist umbrella organization under Osama bin Laden, and this is their operational manual, the thing that they gave to their operatives worldwide, telling them how to carry out an operation. We thought we would compare this to the common characteristics on the list. Let's look at items number 3 and 4, likely to have a Saudi passport, likely to have visas issued in Saudi Arabia. Let's see what the Al-Qaeda trading manual says about that. All documents of the undercover brothers, such as identity card and passport, should be falsified. Now that means, if you look at the common characteristic list, it says most of them have Saudi passports. It's very likely, if this was an Al-Qaeda operation, that those passports, or many of them, were falsified. Let's go back to the common characteristics list. The last item, clean-shaven, Western appearance. Now, if you go into the operations manual, let's see what they tell their operatives to do in terms of appearance. It says the photograph of the brother in these documents should be without a beard. So it was followed in this case. And there is one other item that is not a personal characteristic, but it's an operational characteristic. Item number 7 in the operational manual of Al-Qaeda, when it talks about what targets to choose, says blasting and destroying the embassies and attacking vital economic centers. If this was an Al-Qaeda operation, they did follow their manual to a T.
Rescue workers in New York are refusing to give up hope. They say they still believe there are people buried alive under the pile of destruction. Now, for more on this, let's go to our Gary Tuckman standing by in New York. Gary, what can you bring us?
Michael, the World Trade Center building and the surrounding area used to be one of the most pleasant and convenient places to work. You could take the subway right into the building. You didn't have to go outside. On a nice day, you could sit outside by the Hudson River, eat your lunch, look at the Statue of Liberty, look at the boats coming by. There was an observatory on the 110th floor, a great place to take children. They had virtual reality games, a beautiful view out the window. They had a lunchroom that looked like Central Park with trees. Now that's all gone. What we have behind me now, where the World Trade Center used to be, is a cauldron of fire and smoke. And what's really incredible, and I've been here since the very beginning, but I still can't get used to the fact, basically you have a graveyard behind me with up to 5,000 bodies still buried in this rubble. We have some pictures we want to show you, shot by a man who was one of the rescue workers who went out there the first couple of days to help out, and he brought his video camera there. The police are not allowing the news media to get too close to Ground Zero, so we're relying on this type of video to show you. We want to give you a picture of the masses of steel that are piled up to 100 feet high in places. It's literally like a mountain range, all the debris that is out here. It's estimated there are 600,000 tons of rubble. 22,000 tons have now been removed. That's less than 4% of the estimated amount of rubble. But what is also there are the victims and hopefully survivors. But for the last 3 days, not one survivor has been found, and that is very disappointing news, but they are still looking. Something that was found today, an extraordinary, poignant sight, a fire truck. And this shows you how deep the rubble is. The fire truck was pulled out by crane out of the rubble. It sat on it, ladder 18. It was completely destroyed. There were no people inside that fire truck, but that gives you an idea of what they're contending with here at this rubble site here at the World Trade Center. World Trade Center consisted of 200,000 tons of steel, 14 acres of windows, and if anyone tells you they know how long it will take to clean this area up, they're not telling you the truth, because no one's ever experienced anything like this before, no one's ever dealt with anything like this before, and no one really knows how long it will take. Michael, back to you.
Gary, as you've reported over past days, there is still hope for survivors, as there has been from the start, but as each day, each hour passes, that hope must fade a little. Is that affecting morale there on the scene?
It certainly is, Michael, because there was great hope, considering the fact that so many people are involved. There are 4,972 people missing. There is great hope they could find a great number of survivors, and they did find 6 survivors over the first 2 days. They found them in pockets under the rubble, so they weren't hit by the rubble. They were actually under the rubble, and they were able to dig and get them out. And they're hopeful they would find a lot. And what really scares a lot of the rescue workers and diminishes their feelings right now and makes them feel very badly is the fact that these people who went through such horror could have suffered even more for a period of hours or even days waiting to be rescued and then passing away while waiting for the rescue that never came.
All right, Gary Tuckman in New York at 2:11 on the East Coast here. Thanks, Gary. Well, mourners gathered in New York as 3 firefighters killed in the aftermath of the attacks on the World Trade Center were laid to rest. The 3 were among the group of firefighters who rushed to the scene when the first plane struck on Tuesday. They included that beloved chaplain we mentioned before, Reverend Michael Judge, who had comforted colleagues for decades. He was killed by falling debris while administering last rites to a dying firefighter. New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani was one of the thousands in attendance.
I believe a recognition for many of us that this is only the first group of funerals that we're going to have to conduct for our men and women and so many whose lives were lost at the World Trade Center. My heart goes out to the men and women of the fire department in particular and their families.
About 300 firefighters remain unaccounted for. Well, as rescue workers dig through the pile of rubble for signs of survivors, friends and families are also actively searching for their missing loved ones. For more on that, let's go to CNN's Michael Oku. He's at the Armory in New York, where thousands have been providing information on those still unaccounted for. Michael, what can you bring us?
Well, Michael, I can tell you that there is a very tired, weary feeling that has taken grip of this city. So many people have shed so many tears over the course of these days. And in the coming days, and in fact I'm beginning to hear it already, you will likely start hearing words and phrases that are so often used at times like this that they have a ring of cliche. Words like resolution and moving forward and a returning to normalcy. But for so many people, possibly tens of thousands of people that may be connected to what they hope are still almost 5,000 lives underneath the ash and rubble at the World Trade Center, there will be no returning to normalcy. How they try to find resolution is by coming here. I'm in front of the Armory, which is at 26th Street and Lexington Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. And here is where relatives can come forward and fill out essentially what is a 7-page form where they can give information to some of the rescue workers and some of the authorities here that might help connect authorities' investigation to identifying some of those people who have been recovered. They are asked to give them all kinds of identifiable information, from the color of their ears and the color of their eyes and their hair, to any recognizable scars they may have, even the kind of nail polish they like to wear. Over the course of the past few days, 3,100 people, relatives, have passed through the doors behind me. And at some point today, the New York Health Department announced the fact that a company called LabCorp, which is one of the